And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly. This is Adventures in Woo-Woo. This episode, I'm going to do a divination using the 40 servants. But I thought rather than doing it for the usual thing we do, which is, to try and find out what the future will hold for us or, solve a problem, what I thought I would do in this one is do a 3-card reading to see if there was something that we missed from the last year, being that it was one of the weirdest years that I'd say most of us have been through. Well, with lockdowns and elections and any number of things that you want to point out for this year. So when I do these kind of divinations and I do them on the YouTube, what I tend to do and what I did during the lockdown daily videos when I did a number of divinations was do them towards myself. And the kind of idea being that I don't think I'm obviously that unique or in such a unique situation that some sort of advice or some sort of insights that I would get from me would probably apply to a number of other people. So while ostensibly it's a reading about what did I miss during this year, or what should I bring, what should I have got from this year, or is there something I'm not getting that is something I should put a bit of focus on that happened, try to learn the lesson of what was presented this year. Hopefully it'll apply to you as well. But if not, it doesn't. That's just the nature of these things. First of all, I have a new light. New fancy one of those ring lights. I'm a proper YouTuber now. And you can see, if I can find it, the difference it makes. Disappear, Tommy? Back, Tommy. It's quite bright. Not sure if I like it as yet, but we'll see. So, 40 servants. So, as I shuffle just to get the energy going, man. So it's kind of basically, this year, what is it that I may have forgotten to learn or that I didn't take enough notice of? Or is there something about the kind of events of this year or the things that I've gone through that I haven't got the full understanding of, that I need to, in some way unpack a bit more or let unfold? Or is there something about this year that, I need advice on or something? I don't know what the exact question is, but hopefully it's pointing, or you understand what I'm trying to say. What is it about this year that I need to know? There you go. That's what we have. 3 cards. And here we go. So, the witch. So the witch would suggest, as she always does, that there's some sort of weird in the air, that there's some sort of magic. And what I would say from that is that, while I definitely went the opposite end, a lot of people went conspiracy this year, and I kind of got thrown in the other way, where I just, all my kind of love for conspiracy as an entertainment or as mind games and stuff like that, I pulled back from it, just seeing that when in practice and when it was important, and when, people's lives were on the line and people's jobs and health and all of these things, that they became an awful lot less fun. And, I kind of felt that having a more rational approach to these things was certainly the type of approach I was going to have anyway. And so the witch, I suppose, in this context would say that don't neglect the idea or don't completely dismiss the idea that there was magic afoot too, and that there was something going on. And I had that kind of feeling early on in the lockdown that there was something good happening, and it I felt, was hopeful that maybe we'd go into the future and had learned something and it would be, a better place. And it turned out, it's going to be mostly the same place. So my kind of hope dwindled a bit on that as it kind of went on, and I could see that the world wasn't going to change dramatically for the better anyway. And that possibly the lessons that we could have learned from something like a pandemic, to bring us all closer together, seems in many ways to have separated us. But that might be just in the short term. Who knows what the impact will be long term. So just, I would say for me and for all of us, the witch would represent that even without going conspiracy about a new world order or pandemic, or it was kind of, planned, that there was some magic afoot, that there was some sort of unfoldment, that there was some sort of higher possible plan or magic or weird or some sort of energy, some sort of witchiness involved in the whole thing too, and not to discount that. So that seems fair enough. So, card 2. So, we have the opposer. So the opposer is external factors that impose restrictions on us. So it's not kind of your inner demons, your own limiting beliefs or your own faults or failings. It's actual things that's out there, like laws and, you know, people at work, or, you know, people that are in your hierarchy that are above you that might be stopping you climbing the ladder at work, or whatever these kind of things. Actual external factors, you know, parental control, relationships, all that kind of stuff that has a factor on you, but it's not just you having, you know, a limiting belief about it. So what would this be in context of this year? That to be aware of the opposition of what it was and see it as an opposition, or be aware of the kind of, that it shined a light on the amount of opposition or the amount of control and the amount of things that are kind of in play in the kind of our day-to-day lives. You know, we have all these kind of knowledge of how bad social media is for us, but yeah, we're so plugged in. I wouldn't know how to, you know, how to get you to watch a video if I hadn't have social media. Wouldn't know how to find anyone. Wouldn't know how to set up a community, or, you know, how would anyone sell a product or anything these days, you know, without, say, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, all of these things. And I'm not even talking about doing advertisements or anything like that, but like just a general kind of putting up links. And, you know, even if you have a blog, yeah, how would people find a blog now without social media? Really don't know. And so I suppose this is kind of to be aware of the opposition that showed its hand this year. Be that people who are on the, you know, the opposite end of how you kind of feel about life. For me, like, say, the kind of bigger conspiracy people, or the, you know, the people who just kind of couldn't imagine that actually, you know, a pandemic had happened, and rather than it being 10 guys in a room secretly controlling the world, that it's just, you know, quite likely we're rudderless, and people, rather than being nefarious, are actually just inept. You know, I know too many people who work in the civil service to really believe for any minute that there could be any sort of, you know, global conspiracy to do anything, to organize anything. So yeah, I'm still don't think I'm getting the full opposition what that would mean. So this year then, I suppose, as an opposition, as something that pinpointed, and to remember how much we take our freedom, I suppose, without getting to freedom for granted, and how easy it can be taken away from us. And then we kind of have forgotten that, or at least I have forgotten in the early days of lockdown, how weird that was. And now you're kind of a bit institutionalized, a bit, you know, you're used to lockdowns and, you know, the restrictions or whatever, but to still remember the importance or the scope of what that opposition was. And that even if you don't want to go full conspiracy on it, but still even in a kind of a way of thinking that how, I've been very articulate today, but how that we can easily end up not having the things that we have. I think that's kind of what it's putting it, to not dismiss the opposition that you went through this year. Yeah, so not dismiss the things that you had to go through, even if you have decided that it was worthwhile, you know, and it was a good thing to do, and the right thing to do and all that. It still was hard, I suppose, is what it's saying. Not to forget that. And the final card, the Balancer. Okay. So in the year, I'm thinking of that it was an overall balance. It doesn't seem balanced. It seems more imbalanced, I suppose. But so to look at the balance of it, and what was, or maybe it was a rebalancing. Again, this goes back to the hopeful kind of feeling I had at the beginning, that there was some sort of rebalancing happening, or a realignment that seemed to then just disappear, and it didn't happen. Like there was a period that there was this kind of cocoon energy, or this kind of feeling as if you were being held, or that, you know, being looked after or something. And then that kind of went after, you know, the initial lockdown, I suppose, it kind of went. But it did have this feeling of a rebalancing and a realignment, and things having to happen in this way, as if it was the whole thing was a reaction to something. I suppose you could think of that from the environmental kind of thing, that as soon as we all locked down, you know, nature just returned immediately. And I suppose, you know, to kind of think that if we were all to, you know, suddenly have some sort of cataclysm, or where we all died, that, you know, the earth would completely cover us over very, very quick, and we'd get to kind of the scenes of The Last of Us really, really quickly. And so that we have to, I suppose, learn the lesson of this year, that there needs to be a balance between work and play, and between business and the economy and people's health, and there needs to be a balance between ecology and being able to function as humans and as a community and all of these kind of things. And to see, I suppose, it brought to light an awful lot of things where we don't really need to be doing an awful lot of things that we thought we were doing. Look, many people are probably going to be working from home from now on, because it doesn't seem to be something that you need to do all this kind of traveling, or to get to work you need to be put into the hive mind of a like a corporate situation. But then balance again, of course, that I wasn't able to, or allowed is the correct thing, to go out into nature, and I didn't get to spend so much time in the forest. And we've discovered how much that nature means to us in that kind of sense, even in a very tactile way, in a very emotional way, or even a physical way. And then even how bad it was not to be able to touch people, and how even though you had your Zooms and your Skypes and your phone calls and all these things, that it's not remotely the same. So we need a balance in all these things. So that's one of the lessons. So the 3 cards, the Witch, lots of magic going on, and not to dismiss the magic element of the year. For me, even if I didn't go full conspiracy on it being, whatever it was, 5G, Bill Gates, the end of the world, all of this kind of stuff. The opposer also recognised that there was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of things that had to go through. There was a lot of rules. There was lots of things that's going, and that did take a big toll on me, and I assume you. So again, if we're dismissing, in some sense, the kind of bigger New World Order conspiracy, to not kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and realise that there was an awful lot of restrictions that happened, an awful lot of things, and not to kind of forget that or negate the effect of that. And then the last one being the balance, that seeing the balance of what we need, given that we've, everything got thrown up in the air in a sense, and we're more able to prioritize or recognize the things that we need and some of the things that we don't need, what's important, what's not important, what's doable, what isn't doable, what's a better way of doing things, a new way of doing things. So I think that's very cool. It kind of addressing, for me anyway, that there's still things that when I look at this year that I need to be cognizant of or aware of, even in a kind of a view that I'm not going with the pandemic, I'm not going with all these things, not to just kind of, I'm trying to formulate this a bit better, that I still, even if you don't think the lockdown was, even if you think the lockdown was, the absolute 100% right thing to do, handled amazingly well by all governments, that it was from start to finish the completely professional rollout of all of these things. Even if you were to believe that you still have to recognise the restrictions and the toll that must take upon you. And even if you don't go full conspiracy, you still have to recognise, or at least accept, that there was some underlying magic or part that was played in a kind of a spiritual sense to it all, and in the balance around it. So, okay, that's usually when I do these, things come to me over the next couple of hours. Now you have to update them or talk about them again in another video. But what I am going to do for another video before the end of the year is do again a 3-card reading, but for next year, and see how we're going to fare, or what sort of advice or insight we can be given from the 40 servants for the coming year. Hopefully it's a bit better than this year, or more enjoyable, or whatever is like. The reason why I'm qualifying that is that this might turn out to be great, given the hardship, whatever might, and the sacrifice might turn out to be worthwhile in the end, and we might look back at it, hopefully, as the beginning of something new and something more positive. Perhaps not. We can only hope. So, good people of the internet, that is my 3-card reading for what we should take away from this year, or not neglect, or what we should remind ourselves about, or keep an eye on, or whatever, this year. And yeah, talk to you all soon. And I hope you start to enjoy the holidays, and may your best days be ahead, and be well.